effective, most reliable way to deliver any type of service or anything. So if you don't have any money, you're going to end up dealing with robots and AI all the time. And if you have loads of money, then you'll get to deal with humans.
Well, hello and welcome back to the AI Evolution podcast. As usual, we've got Ben Harvey and Dave Brown here with us today. We're going to tackle the latest and greatest things that are happening in the world of AI. Ben, how are you feeling? How are things? What's been going on in your world?
Yeah, good. I've been playing around with the new Sora 2, which I've been desperate to get hold of for a few months, but because it's not been out in the UK yet, I had to jump through some hoops, but I've been playing around with that, which has been really fun. It's really interesting to see how the lip syncing works. I was impressed with some of it. I think when you compare it to the VO3 and the some of the other steps that people are doing to get consistent characters, it's still great for a clip. But the moment you start to try put 3 or 4 clips together, you then have to go to other tools to create your models and to create your consistency. So it is a lot better. The audio is fun. The sound effects are really fun. But for putting together, I was keen to try put together a 1 minute little film about a terrible counselor, and I tried it, and every scene had a different look, even though it was the same character, same prompt, tried the same seed, all those things. So it's just not quite. I was really excited and then slightly disappointed, but yeah, it's good. It's impressive.
So. Well, first of all, I want to know how you accessed it, because obviously, we're all in the UK and I've not been able to access that. So I'm interested to know how you got around that. And then the other thing, I suppose, is with VO3, doesn't that have some kind of software platform that allows you to kind of edit stuff? And I'm wondering with Sora, presumably it doesn't have that. It's just a case of, hit a text prompt and you get what you get, and then it's up to you to try and piece it together. Is that the difference?
Yeah, I haven't used VO3 in anger, so I've just seen what other people have used it for, and they're probably using other AI tools as well to keep the consistency in the characters. So I've had to download some other things. I've downloaded Comfy, which allows you to use LoRa models and consistency, but it's just, it becomes quite a ball ache quite quickly. But yeah, it is fun. I've accessed it through a VPN at the moment. Okay. And got a code off someone, because you have to have an invite code as well, through Discord.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you there, because I've obviously thought about a VPN, but it's on the App Store, isn't it? So does that mean you have to kind of convince Apple that your entire Apple account is now based in the US?
I can't use it on the iPhone. I had to use it through the website, through the OpenAI website. So,
I see. Right.
Yeah,
okay,
which is a different experience, and it seems very set up for social media output. Everything's portrait. It's not. I mean, you can change that, but it just seems set up for doing quite quick content, humorous content for social media. So I only managed to get hold of it 2 or 3 days ago, so I haven't used it a lot, but I've created maybe 10, 15 videos from it, and created a script with ChatGPT about this idea I had, as I say, of a terrible counselor who starts cracking onto one of his clients. And I just wanted to make I just wanted to use it as a test case. But as I say, every scene looked different. So then I started having to go down the rabbit hole of trying to, create something through other tools that I could then bring into Sora.
So Dave, have you had a play with it, or seen lots of Sora videos? I've seen lots online. So
I've seen tons and tons of videos online. And half the time, what's really funny is my wife gets annoyed every time she sees one. She's like, God damn it, it's another AI video, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, actually, I've kind of come around to it. A lot of them are quite funny, and a lot of them are humorous. Like the bear jumping through the window and all the other stuff, that they've got. And I quite like them. And I think it's been again, it's its own thing. And I think all of that AI video content and all the other stuff, it's turned into it's its own thing. And I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they were sort of lamenting the fact that that there was all this AI video and that everybody could do everything. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing is that it makes it makes what we're doing here, right? The three of us together, maybe we even live stream this, right? And we go, look, it's the three of us, we're sitting here, we're having a conversation. And that sets what we do apart from the AI stuff. So fine, if your company wants to go and they want to write a script and they want to create a training video from AI, first of all, it's terrible still. The AI it's still not close enough to being a human, I think, yet that it's still annoying. But the humanness is now what sets us apart. So the people who are actually creating real human content, it's actually making us even better and more engaging than we were before, I think, in a weird kind of
No, I agree.
ironic way. Do you know what I mean?
It's the authenticity of it.
Yeah, which brings it to the fore. And I've started, a lot of my podcast clients and a lot of my customers that come into the studio, I'm now saying to them, look, you should be doing more live streaming. You should be going out there and driving home the point that, hey, I'm a real person and I'm sitting here now. This is not an AI tool. And I'm engaging with you.
Yeah.
And I think, that sort of stuff is gonna rise to the surface. I think we will end up, and we've talked about this before, what AI is doing is it's killing the bottom end. So if you had a tiny startup company or a small company who needed to create a 2-minute video that they wanted to do for an ad for themselves or whatever, historically, they probably would not do it at all.
Yeah.
And if they did do it, they try to get a videographer or someone to come out. They would push you down on price as much as possible, so you'd end up making a few £100 from doing it. And okay, you might have a project to do, and it's a few £100, but that's all of that stuff has gone out of the market now because people can go and do it themselves. But again, ironically, what it seems to be doing is it's also showing people, that it's a lot more difficult than it seems. And just because AI can technically go and make something that looks like a video, it isn't actually a video.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? And for
Completely.
what you were just saying, it's like you can't get the consistency, you can't get the consistent look and feel still.
Yeah.
The tools aren't there yet. 5 years from now, there'll probably be specialist tools that will.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to put in, and it will, they maybe will have had that cracked. But I think right now it's entertaining, and I do love some of the stuff that's coming out. People are doing some amazingly creative things. And I do think the AI in general has opened the door for a lot of people who are creative and think creatively, but they maybe didn't have the manual skill to do whatever it was. Maybe you're a hidden musician, but you haven't gone through learning how to play the guitar, but you know what sounds good and you know what you like. And so you can now use AI to get that out. Okay, it's a different thing, but you've still got the creativity there. And so people are able to use it for that.
And we've seen this for years, haven't we, in music, with DJs and hip hop and everything, it's new tools, new ways of creating. So
Auto-tune. Auto-tune opened up a whole millions of people who would never have sang before now are coming out and they're singing because there's auto-tune. So it's it's helping fix them, and they're coming out, and tell you what, some of them are making millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
I do get quite upset when I sort of I constantly see the word AI slop appearing all over the internet. AI slop, blah 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 blah, and often related to Sora and the videos and stuff. And look, it is what it is, isn't it? And I don't think it doesn't. It's not replacing human videos. People haven't stopped making human videos because of it. And actually, I'll be completely blunt. I think that a lot of human videos are slop. When you go online,
that's the point I was going to make. Yeah,
we've been making slop for a long time, right? And the other thing I would always say about the AI stuff as well is that it's made by humans, right? It's not made. AIs don't wake up in the morning and think, "Hey, I think I'll make a video of a bear riding on a horse." A human thought that and prompted it and put that out, downloaded it, uploaded it to YouTube or whatever platform. It's humans doing it, so it's humans controlling a tool, and I don't see a problem with that whatsoever. I think it's quite distinguishable still. Not necessarily because of the uncanny valley stuff, but more just the fact that what people make with it is generally so extraordinary. You couldn't do it in real life, but you can do it in
Yeah.
AI. So you can usually
Yeah.
tell quite quickly when something's AI, because that could never happen in real life.
Could we?
I think it's fine. It will find its balance, won't it? It will find its place.
Definitely.
I think there's a slight segue here, as with something you just said that made me think of it and think about agents. Yeah, that's all right. What's interesting, I wonder if you could set up an agent to tell the AI to just go and create a random video every morning.
I'm sure you will be able to do that, and if it's not possible today,
I get that it's not doing it itself, right? Like it's not just waking up and thinking I want to create a video, but the first step, I guess, would be using agentic to say, at every day at 5 a.m., I want you to create a 90-second video on whatever you want to create it on.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
What it did.
I have an agent every Monday that creates a newsletter for me. It's no different to that, is it? It's just, and it goes and finds the relevant information. And
I wonder what it would create if you just said, create it on any topic that you want.
Yeah,
it's up to you.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting experiment. Be like the trading bots that are sort of. Did you see that trading? I think we talked about it last time. The one that was, if it loses a certain amount of money, it gets shut down. So it's in the agent's own interest to keep making money. So, no, I had a couple of points. I think you're right. It is a completely different thing. In the same way that McDonald's is different than a roast dinner or a Michelin star restaurant. But I think. And also, Al, I totally agree that, when you look at the amount of design done with Comic Sans, that, you don't get designers going around saying, teachers are creating slop. They're just using tools that they have in their place to create stuff to communicate what they need to get done without spending hours doing a design degree. And I think, I don't know if you've seen the fake camping AI videos. They're quite fun as well, interviewing someone in campsites, and there's a caravan rolling off a cliff, and they're quite sweary, but they're really funny. They're really funny.
Right.
But I think you're right, David. It just allows people to express really creative ideas in a fun way, and I get it. But then there's a place for authentic, human-led, filmmaking as well. There's room for everything, I think.
Well, and there's a whole sort of theme of stuff I've seen on TikTok, which is kind of AI satire, which is stuff that you wouldn't be able to necessarily create with humans, or no humans would necessarily want to do it publicly. So, and so there's a whole series of where they sort of satire shops in retail, places like Tesco's, and it's sort of it's as if the shop is doing its own advert, but it's basically saying how terrible it is, And if you want to come and buy a roll from us, we'll make sure that we fleece you completely. And if you come to Costa or whatever, we're going to make sure. I better not say that, but you get the point. And that sort of satire and stuff that is very quick and then able to produce is very good, actually. And just wouldn't be possible without AI, really.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you're right, Alan, as well. The amount of slop that we create out there as well is just, I
think we've seen with music as well already, with AI music, because there's a lot of AI music out there now. Apparently, Spotify is sort of every day removing it from their platform. But, the reality is that humans haven't chosen to go and spend most of their hours listening to AI music either, have they? They're still listening to the stuff that they have connections with real human beings that they understand now and recognise, and perhaps our fans of or whatever. So I think an AI music, for background music, for lists, for wallpaper, whatever, if you're making a video, you want a rights-free bit of music, great. But if you're going to go and choose an artist to see perform, you're probably not going to go and see an AI one. If you're going to sit down and spin an album on Spotify, it's probably not going to be AI at the moment. So, and that's not to say we won't get to that stage for some people one day. I think we will, but it's not just suddenly overtaken and made everything else irrelevant, has it? And I think with video it's the same. It won't just replace everything and that's it. We'll still continue to do what we do. So,
and even things that are like the Gorillas or the ABBA thing that's in London, they're humans doing that behind the scenes, and even the people I know that have been to see that say that's a one-trick pony for them. It was amazing to see technology, but they don't want to go to something else like that. So it's interesting. Yeah, and
I've created music using AI tools, and it can be quite involved actually. It's not just a case of prompt.
Same with video gen. Doing video generation is quite involved as well. It's not just a case of type in a prompt and off you go. If you want a good output, it's quite involved.
I saw an article a long time ago, and it basically said that what's happening is when you're using AI, is you become an art director,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And so you have to understand that traditionally that's what an art director would do. And so you're in this weird position where you still have to think of every single thing that you want it to do.
Yeah.
And actually that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
The hardest part, if anybody out there's ever tried to sit down, or if you guys have tried to sit down and maybe you're gonna do a short film, or you're gonna do an ad, and then you've got to sit down and kind of storyboard what it is that you want. Like going from I want to do an ad to, well, what does that ad look like?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm not really sure. And you're like, well, maybe I want it to be outdoors. And then you go, okay, well, what kind of outdoors do you want? City? Do you want what do you want? And you getting into the detail of the vision of exactly what it is that you want, and then being able to describe that in words to then get it out. That's still the creative part.
Yeah.
That's the most important part of the whole process, is actually knowing what you're trying to do, because anybody can go hire a film crew, but if they don't know what they're doing, then it doesn't help anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So it still needs all of that sort of stuff involved.
Yeah, I've spent about 3 weeks doing pre-production on something we're shooting on Monday. The amount of questions there are, what cuts are we going to have? What shot? Not, everyone thinks of the bigger things.
Yeah.
What shots? What shots are we going to have? You're going to start with a wide. I mean, you speak to the DOP, but hundreds of decision-making processes, and you and it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, and some of it's really dull. So yeah, and I guess the same.
Exactly.
Same with all art direction.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah,
isn't
for
it?
sure.
Well, and I think, it's like you said at the start, Dave. This is it's here to stay. It's not going away, and I think it will just get used to it. And I think a lot of people, when they first saw it, did kind of go, oh, this is the end of everything, and then perhaps over the weeks they kind of realised that, do you know what, it's probably fine. It's going to just be what it is, and it'll be out there. I remember, back in the sort of 90s and 80s, people complaining about synthesizers and DJs using decks and mixing and sampling and all of that. And everyone, the music, thought that was the end of the world as well. But here we all are.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we mentioned agents a minute ago, so why don't we pivot into that then? Because I think it sort of does relate a little bit to this. As we said, it could be used to drive this content in the future. I was quite pleased and interested to see GPT launch their agent this week, and obviously we are in the middle of what I would now call the browser wars. Everyone's releasing a new browser. I mean, how boring were browsers for 10 years? Like nothing, right? Literally nothing ever changed in browsers ever. It was just like a browser's a browser. It's like the dullest thing in the world. And then in the last sort of 6 months, they suddenly become really interesting. And we've seen offerings from Gemini, GPT, Claude, and all doing different things. Perplexity is quite an interesting one, particularly their mobile version is very good. It can really jump around on your phone and open things and get videos for you and play and do all sorts of stuff. So I had a play about with the Chat GPT one when it launched.
Atlas, is it?
Yeah, Atlas,
Atlas?
And
yeah.
I thought, well, okay, yeah, no, it's quite good. You can sit there and watch it clicking around and doing stuff. But quite quickly, I kind of went, but what will I use it for? What am I actually going to use this for? And I sort of run out of ideas very quickly. And I even put it in our WhatsApp group, in the AR Your WhatsApp group. Has anyone got any ideas? And really, there was a kind of a nil. One or two people came back with a couple of things, but there was nothing of that interesting that you sort of think, oh, I must try that. So I did put it to a little bit of a test the other day. So I apologise if my doorbell goes, because I'm getting lots of deliveries at the moment, because we're going to have some plumbing done at the weekend, which involves radiators. So I thought to myself, okay, I've got a list of radiators. Now, the plumber sent them to me, and I've got those. And I thought, but I wonder if I could get the agent to, if I give it the instructions to go and find the same thing. Imagine I didn't have a handy plumber telling me what I needed. So I set the agent off. I mean, it wasn't great. It sort of clicked around for a bit, come back with some stuff, completely the wrong sort of things that, wouldn't fit, wouldn't work, wrong colours. And I thought to myself, well, maybe I've not given it enough detail in the instructions. So then I give it a sort of much more highly detailed instruction, literally copying and pasting all the information that are the radiators that I'm actually going to use, to see if it could go and manage that. And again, it just got itself into a muddle, really. And if you were relying on that to do the work for you, it wouldn't work. You would end up having to just go and do it yourself. And I just got to thinking, well, we are sort of at a stage, I think, with this stuff where if you've got to give it that much level of detail, then you might as well have just gone and ordered it yourself. So if you're ordering a pizza and you're like, well, actually, okay, but I need to make sure it's the right sort of pizza, the right size, with this topping, and then I want Diet Coke with that, and I want to make sure it's got the fries. By the time you spent instructing, you can't just simply say to the thing, give me a pizza. Because unless you order the exact same order every single time you order a pizza, you're going to basically spend as much time instructing the agent as to what you actually need. As you're just going click, 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 order. So I do wonder about its usefulness at this point. Don't get me wrong. I think agents are absolutely huge and will change the way AI works and functions in the future. But I think, as with a lot of things when they sort of first arrive, we haven't quite worked out what the killer app is yet or the use case.
So what's the difference? Let's use your pizza scenario.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and saying to your PA, can you order me a pizza?
She'd probably turn instantly, around to me and say... you're going to have to say, can I have a large pepperoni pizza and a Diet Coke?
It's the same. It's the same as talking to a human, really, because otherwise, if you leave it up to her, you may get a mushroom pizza or like whatever, like, I don't know, some veggie pizza with, I don't know. Like, my point broadly is with a lot of stuff, it's like talking to an AI, it's like talking to a human. And I think we forget that we just assume that it's going to know everything automatically all the time. And it's just like talking to another person. If you want something specific, you have to tell the person what you want. Otherwise, you might get unreliable results.
I wouldn't be telling the person, because I wouldn't ask someone to go and order it for me. I would order it myself. So the point is that if I've got to go and tell a person or an AI, I might as well have just done it myself. And I would have done it myself. So it's kind of it's as useless as the human then at that. But the whole point of the process is that why bother doing it in the first place when you? And the other thing that strikes me with this sort of implementation of agency within the browsers at the moment is that it feels completely aligned with humans rather than technology. So to my mind, if you were saying to an agent, right, I want you to order me a new MagSafe battery for my phone, it shouldn't need to go and click around and pretend it was a human on the Amazon website and click about and go and find it and order it. And it should just be to send a message to Amazon and say, this guy needs a MagSafe battery, done, processed. So it's almost like, why are we using this kind of human framework for digital systems? It's like putting something that's analog right in the middle of something that's digital and saying, but you could just talk to each other directly, but instead we're going to make you use the human interface and GUI and click about that to get there, which is like
I agree.
The long way around, isn't it?
I've quite enjoyed watching Atlas go off and try to do things. I mean, I've only used it again in the last week or so, but I kept coming up against walls anyway. I tried it to, I was looking at some topics around this week and I found some YouTube videos that were like an hour long and I didn't particularly want to watch them, so I thought I'll try Atlas, get it to see if it can send this video to a transcription service and summarize it for me, but it just couldn't do any of the processes, and I saw it trying to work it out and it couldn't, and so then I had to go manually take the URL, go find a website, transcribe it, download the text, then load it back into ChatGPT and summarize. And it was just so clunky for
it's completely bonkers. And I just think,
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that it's just that stepped process is what you want an agent for. That, we've talked before about how AI totally transforms what a business is. It's not a bolt-on. It's that, processing and automating tasks that are repetitive is what I want it for. I want it to take away the boring and to take away the stuff that isn't creative. I want it to take away, summarizing a document that I don't want to read, or summarizing a video that I don't want to listen to for an hour because I know 90% of it is someone banging on about themselves. That's what I want AI for, and to sort of automate that process, not for me to have to create a Python app myself in ChatGPT and then bring it into Claude and create, I've done that because I'm interested in the process, but it'd be when these agents get to a point when they can start to, work with each other and take some of that repetitive and automated work off you, then that's when I think they'll fly.
So I have a friend who runs like a heating. I think he does gas and he does bathrooms and all sorts of stuff, right? And he's got the next, not the £20 a month ChatGPT, but the £200 a month ChatGPT. So he's got like the next layer up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's built an agent. And essentially what he does is he's got teams of people out doing work all over the place and, different job sites and different jobs and all sorts of things. And everything runs through that. So basically when he goes to a job, he finishes the job and then he gets in his truck and then he leaves a voice note for the agent. And it has a personality. So at that level, you can get a voice and it basically is like a person. And you can set the settings. So you can say, is it male or female? Is it slightly flirty? Is it more businesslike? And all these, you can give it characteristics. And then it basically keeps track of everything. And so he set it up. It's female, slightly flirty, because he says, okay, it's nicer to get through my day if it's slightly flirty. And but he comes in and he leaves he leaves his notes about every job to he just talks to it and says, here are all my notes from the job. It then goes off automatically and writes all that up and puts it onto his Google Drive and puts it into the form that it needs to go to, adds it into his CRM and keeps track of all of that. And then he can get in at, say, 2:00 in the afternoon and he can go, hey, I don't remember what he calls it. Like, I'll just say Eva. It's not that, but whatever. And you can say, hey, Eva, how's it going today? And she'll go, well, John's finished 2 jobs this morning. Robert's done 3 jobs this morning. He had some trouble with this one thing, but he was able to resolve it. And it gives and it talks back to him and it gives him a summary of what everybody's been up to. Yeah. And then he'll say, is there anything that I need to pay attention to? And it'll come back and go, well, it seems like John's been having trouble communicating with people and blah, blah, blah. So you might want to have, it actually gives advice. And it's what you were saying a little bit, Ben, it's summarizing what's happened without him having to go and then manually log in to look at all the reports that everybody's written up. They don't have to spend time sitting and actually filling in forms and writing everything down. They just talk to it. It does all of that. So then when he comes back later, he has all the notes and everything are completely done and ready to go. They're all in his Google Drive under each customer where they're supposed to be. And I was just like, okay, so this is a guy who is a small business owner. He runs 4 or 5 different companies. And he keeps all of it straight and he keeps track of everything by putting it all into ChatGPT and having the AI and the agents that he's built doing all of these independent little tasks. And he runs his entire business. And I said, is it worth the £200 a month? He said, I'll tell you what, if it was £10,000 a month, I would still pay it.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, so essentially what he's running there is a RAG, isn't it? It's just kind of retrieval augmented generation. It's pulling information through.
Yeah.
So a little bit different from saying, go and buy me, some Vimto because I've got a cough and I'm running low, and it going out into the world and finding it. So he's dumping, his team are dumping stuff in, it's finding stuff, it's allowing him to kind of pass it, and then he can get feedback through it. But I think, and that's a really good use case. I think good on him. I wouldn't have considered ever spending £200 on the extra powerful version, but yeah, there you go.
But that's what. But I think this is the beginning. Yeah. So it's not a big step to then say to, and maybe he's doing this. I don't know. I've had a couple of sort of offhand conversations with him at the pub kind of thing. But there could be an aspect to it where it's then going off and actually proactively doing things if it sees something occur. So there could be a more agentic kind of side to it where it actually is analyzing what's going on and then it's basically reacting to that and saying, okay, well, I'm just going to go take care of it. But this is how it starts. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I think it's people like him who are going to really test it and really find out how can we use these tools. Because otherwise he would have no idea what was really going on. He'd be on his phone constantly. He'd always be trying to figure out what's going on. Whereas now everything just sort of happens smoothly in the background.
It might be worth saying to him though that he could probably do all of that in Notion for £20 a month.
But he couldn't. He couldn't though. He couldn't. Because then everybody has to sit down. They've got to manually type in all the notes all the time. They've manually got to do that. Because, you can do that, but you've got to have the AI from Notion if you want to talk to it. So you're still back to using AI again.
Oh yeah, no,
And
I'm saying
it
with,
doesn't
with the
do
AI
all the
in Notion, you can do that.
Yeah.
There, yeah, you can just talk into it and dump your information in. But it's
But
considerably cheaper than OpenAI, £200 a month. But yeah, so do we think then, sort of futuristic wise, that we end up in a world with websites that there's two versions basically. There's one for the humans, so if we want to go and look at Amazon, we've got a nice sort of GUI we can click around in because that's how we work. And then there's a version of Amazon's website that exists that AIs can talk to, basically, that is just functional. It's not, they don't need to click about, they can just talk to it directly and say, I need a MagSafe, done. Do we think that's, because that will require these companies to open themselves up to the AI companies and allow that kind of access and create that pathway. And there's a risk if they do that everyone then, let's say it works really seamlessly and actually can work really well, then people stop clicking about in their websites, and then you lose that kind of browsing upsell opportunity or marketing opportunity. If you're Uber, you don't want somebody probably just to look at their phone and just say, hey, Siri, order me an Uber. You probably want them to come to your platform because there's clicks, there's engagement, there's ads, there's other things, there's potential. Or if you're selling pizzas or whatever it might be, again, there's an upsell opportunity that you're going to miss if people don't come to your platform. So, and also you don't necessarily get that user data about that customer either. So I wonder if there will be some friction and resistance from, retailers or whatever to actually say, well, actually no, OpenAI or whoever, we're not that keen on allowing your agents to do this because it's stopping our customers from interacting directly with us. Well, it's creating a kind of a bypass, if you like.
I think even more than that, I think a lot of websites will just not be used anymore. I think, I hardly go to websites. I used to read blogs for information. I don't think I've done that once this year. I go to YouTube for my information, or Twitter or whatever social media. I haven't been to read a blog about something I'm interested in for so long, or get it summarized by ChatGPT. I just think there's a whole level of websites that just probably are going to cease to be useful. I think another direction will be, you'll want your agents to just go off and give you recommendations. So I've spent probably a couple of days this week buying props and things for a shoot next week. I'd love an agent in ChatGPT to be able to go off and out to Amazon, research the best 5 of these or 3 of these in the price point, look at reviews for me. There's obviously a trust element to that, but to then come back and say, here's your options. Do you want me to go ahead with one of these? And, to be able to speak these things to ChatGPT as well, and not have to sit at a computer and manually, that's where I would like to see it go.
Yeah, I think it's going that way.
You hit on something that I was going to bring up, which is there's different type of shoppers as well, right? I'm a maximizer, so I like to shop around. I will look I need to buy an external drive. I will look at, or a NAS system. I will look and look and look and look, and I'll read every review, and I'll waver back and forth, and I'll go, what about this and what about that? Like a nightmare for me would be what you were saying, Alan, is just saying, go buy me a charger.
Yeah.
Right? That literally fires every single nerve ending I have, because whatever I get, it's going to be wrong. Whereas my wife, she doesn't give a shit. She just I joke that I shop like a woman and she shops like a man, and I know that's probably, people will kill me in the comments, but I don't care. But she will walk into the shop. She'll find the first thing that ticks a box, and she's like, "Yeah, I need a charger." She'll walk in, she'll go, "That charger, that color, I'll have it."
I wish.
And
I
I'm
was
like, "Do you even know how?" I know, I do too. I'm like, "Do you know how that works? Do you know anything?" She's like, "I don't care. It's it's a charger. I'm fine. I'm just going to get it." And I'm like,
"Yeah, 2 weeks of research is needed on this charger."
Exactly. So I think, Alan, for some people, I think the AI thing would be really, really good. And for other people, it just wouldn't work at all. Okay, if you're shopping for a company and you need to buy toilet paper or whatever, then you could probably just set a thing off and just go. But even then, you're because it will go and it will go away and it'll come back with the least expensive, cheapest toilet paper. And you go, well, I hate that stuff. So I don't know. I totally get what you're saying. And I do think at some point, yeah, there needs to be a back interface. But the other thing I don't trust about that in the API interfaces and stuff is if you go off and say, give me a charger, what Amazon's going to do is they're going to sell you the charger that makes them the most money, not the best charger.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so their AI is going to be maximized for their profit, not your satisfaction.
Agreed.
And so this is where I think the trust breaks down, is that you have to really trust that the other AI is going to give you something that you want.
I could not agree more.
And I don't know how we get there.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really hard problem to crack.
I think it's, we've seen this already to some degree years ago. Look, when the internet first came along, everyone was, that's the end of, people shopping. But it wasn't. People still go to the supermarket and to go and pick up the fruit, look at it and touch it.
But it is.
Choose their clothes.
Look at our high streets. Our high streets are dead.
Well,
the malls are gone.
You said it, Dave, but,
it has killed retail. Compared to what it was in the 80s, it's killed it. It's absolutely killed it.
I think there's plenty. Look, the high streets where I live are full of shops and retail outlets, and people go, and I walk around Morrison's at the weekend, and it's busy, it's full of people, and you walk into the Next and all these clothing shops, and they're full of people trying on stuff. And what I'm saying is, it didn't all just go online. It just doesn't. It wasn't like, oh, no one shops anymore. People enjoy the experience, they enjoy the transaction of it, they enjoy the physical. So I'm not convinced that as what you were saying, Dave, is that everyone's going to want to just kind of let the agents do it for them. I think that a lot of people, including myself, will prefer to go in, like you, review, check, understand the product, before you click buy. And the example that they always seem to give the tech companies is, about booking your holidays or something. There's no way I'm letting an agent plan and book my holiday.
Yeah,
you turn up at the airport and there's no real ticket, or you get to the hotel, it doesn't exist, or do you know what I mean? It's just like,
oh my gosh,
who's going to do that?
We're also particular when it comes to those, economists call those big impact, big ticket items. They're just never going to trust someone to know your idiosyncrasies and quirkiness over those kind of big things. I don't think. Yeah, maybe in the future. Well,
and I think we've talked about this on earlier episodes, but this is where I think that you're going to end up with a federated model. So what you're going to have is a bunch of specialist AIs that do travel. You'll have a specialist AI that only does travel bookings and maybe only hotel bookings. And you'll have another one that does airline bookings. You'll have another one that does, cruise bookings or whatever. And what you will talk to is a high level conversational AI that is the federated part of it. And then all it does is it then goes away to other AI tools itself and uses those tools to do the research and to execute those specific tasks, as opposed to one AI that does everything. Yeah. And I think that's where we're ultimately going to get. And then that way, each one of those specific tools is only trained on data from that specific, knowledge base. And you'll get better results from that. And then that's where your high-level AI can take stuff. It'll go, okay, here's the airline results, here's the hotel results, here's the, here's the, sort of activity results set and everything else. And then it can start to weave them together and go, okay, well, this matches that and that matches that.
Yeah.
But it's a different, I think ultimately that's what we're going to end up with. And then what you'll have is those top-level AIs will have different personalities. So they may be regional, they may be language-based, they may be culturally based or whatever. But the core systems that sit underneath them that do those tasks will pretty much be the same.
Well, I still think trust comes into that. Like, I still think you might think the agent and the back end are not going to give you the best value. Or do you know what I mean? There's still going to be that same element that we talk about with going to Amazon. Like, is it going to give me whoever's bought the best reviews, or and there's that constant fear with TripAdvisor or Amazon, or how much can we trust that data? How much can we trust that airline? And I don't think we have a lot of trust with the people that are providing us these services.
No, you don't know. You don't know. And I think we do end up, the version that we have in 20 years from now, as this evolves, will be nothing like what we've got today, I don't think. What we have today will probably look like the equivalent of what CFAX or teletext was to the internet,
I still love it. I still love it.
kind of risible and laughable, and it would be kind of, isn't it bizarre that we tried to do it like that? That was mad. I just don't buy it as a way forward. You know, a computer mimicking a human by clicking around a website just seems bonkers, basically. So, speaking of the future, what about education then? So this has been in the news a little bit. I saw an article just yesterday, actually, on the BBC website saying that AI is going to be on the curriculum. So their take was this, that they were going to teach students to understand and recognize AI, know what it is, how to use it, and also be able to identify when AI is being used so they can spot fake, news, fake imagery, that kind of stuff. So kind of a general roundup. I don't think it sounded like they were going to go deep like in China, where they're teaching kids to kind of, get super programmy with AI at a very early age. This sounded more like a kind of general, overview of AI and awareness exercise and anything else. But what do we think about AI and education, and where will we be in 20 years from now, do you think?
I have thoughts. Yeah, I was going to say, if you look at Estonia as an interest, I think it was Estonia, because they are outperforming almost everybody in Europe at the moment, and they've gone very pro digital, very AI phones in classrooms, obviously in a controlled way, and there's rules around it, but they've really embraced it, and it's shown quite a big, quite a big improvement. I think. Like the horse has bolted for a lot of our kids. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my son is all over AI. He's teaching himself Python. He's sort of learning about large language. He's 12. He's learning about this stuff long before the teachers can catch up. He's already living, breathing AI every day. He uses it for game development. He doesn't use it so much for learning maths or English, but I think it's really it's here to stay. I think it's really important that it's included in the curriculum.
For sure.
Dave,
go on.
I was going to say, do you think in the classroom it becomes a co-teacher? For the teachers themselves, they'll be using AI. So sort of 20 years from now, kids will be sat in front of screens. They'll be teachers, but they'll also be AI teachers as well, working through, the curriculum with them and covering the different topics and giving them more personalized, I suppose, in a way that a teacher, if he's got 30 students in the classroom, it's difficult for one or two teachers to be up close and personal all the time, that you could have an AI tool available to each student that could understand where they're at in terms of their development and progress, and then be setting them appropriate sort of tests and learning activities, and then the human teachers kind of moving around, almost oversighting, making sure that this is kind of happening properly, and the kids are happy and settled, and everything's as it should be.
Yeah, maybe. I just had a thought while you were saying that I hadn't really thought about before, but. And this is related to education, but I wonder I don't know if you've seen the sort of post where they're talking about that ChatGPT no longer gives medical advice or legal advice. And so if you ask it to give you advice on something, it basically says you need to speak to a lawyer, and it won't tell you. I wonder if it's going to start doing that, if it knows, like, if the kids go into school and they sign into ChatGPT, there'll be an education version that won't actually give you an answer, but it will help score you on your work, or it will give you some information about, like, I don't know how it would work, but they can restrict how the AI behaves and the information that it will give you. So I wonder if that would be the precursor to a real take up in education, because then it's like maybe each school could tell it, okay, these are the questions that we ask, so you can't answer these questions, but you can help them with information related to it or something.
So I think Gemini
really
almost does this, doesn't it? If you go into Gemini, there's like a learning mode you can turn on. And then if you ask it a question, rather than it just giving you the answer, it almost takes you through some learning steps to get to the answer. So you go for a process to get there, rather than this is the answer.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Both those are really good ideas. That's a really good idea, David. I think it's almost, what privacy is to large corporations, and they're having to go for enterprise models, is that kind of not giving you the answer straight away and teaching you to think for yourself and more the sort of process one-on-one teaching, which is the goal, I think.
Or scoring your answers.
Yeah.
I've talked about this for ages, but in 2023, in sort of mid 2023, some private schools were already using ChatGPT for their GCSE and A-level students. But the way the students were using it, it wasn't to get the answers; it was to grade their answers. And so they were doing mock exams, and they could go and answer the questions, and then they would ask ChatGPT to grade the answer and to give them strategies for writing a better answer. And the teachers were rightly very concerned about that in the beginning until they said, look, go and do it and then bring us in what it says so we can see to make sure that it's correct. And when I was sitting in the staff room talking to the teachers in private, they said that most of the time it came up with stuff that they had never even considered and would have never noticed. So they're like, the advice that it was giving was way better than the advice that they could give any individual student on that. And so private schools were doing that so that their kids could score better on the exams and to understand how to answer the questions better. And I think that's a fantastic use of using a GPT, particularly a language model, because that's exactly what it's based around, is the language of how you write your answer. There's another story I want to talk about in a second, but jump in, Alan. I think you wanted to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's interesting, the private school thing as well, because maybe, private schools obviously already, there's a two-speed economy, isn't there, when it comes to education with private schools and, public schools. And I wonder if this widens that gap. If private schools have much more advanced AI adoption because they can afford the technology earlier, they can implement it, they don't have the same restrictions of, the government. That suddenly that gap even grows even bigger, because now you're almost supercharging the education system in those environments. And the public schools, which are tied into government policy or whatever, are slightly hamstrung and only able to deliver a kind of a poorer version of it, basically. And I wonder if that becomes a sort of long-term problem as well with these systems. I mean, one thing I have a lot of hope for the AI systems is that it can create a democratization. I mean, just stepping outside of the UK for a minute, if you think about the other sort of 200 countries around the world, well, a lot of those countries are not in a great state, but there is an opportunity, with a very simple device for somebody who doesn't have access to a lot of good information to suddenly be able to talk to an AI system fairly cheaply, and get information and learn, so maybe globally there is also a democratizing effect to the technology.
Yeah, if you can get the, AI to those edges offline, so you've got a large language model on a, on a Raspberry Pi or a small computer in a village somewhere that doesn't have connection, or you think of Afghanistan, where girls aren't allowed to go to school anymore, and that's a whole different discussion. But being able to access one-to-one teaching with AI, there's opportunities there to go across cultural boundaries and economic boundaries to sort of aid kids that can't have access to some of this stuff. Yeah,
we get Starlink, beam it in anywhere,
Yeah, for sure. So I saw an article the other day, and I'll by the time this comes out, I'll find it and we can put it in the show notes so people could see it. I was desperately looking for it earlier and couldn't find it, but it essentially said that some of the big consultancies like McKinsey and PwC and those guys, what they were finding is that they were getting recent graduates who were coming through as new hires, and they were having to get rid of, I want to say it was like a stupid number, like 90% of them weren't fit to work, because what had happened is that they'd been using AI to help them through their education. But what they didn't have is they didn't have the ability, like for in coding, they didn't have the actual knowledge to sit down and actually code something themselves anymore. That they so relied on the AI to help them when they were writing code that they couldn't actually write the code themselves. So when you got them in a real world work experience situation where they couldn't use AI, they couldn't work and they couldn't do it. And so that, they were lamenting the fact that basically most people coming out of school now aren't fit for certain types of jobs because they're so reliant on AI that they can't actually do it anymore. That's which really I thought was it was a really interesting article.
I wonder if part of that as well is that because the companies themselves are still a bit legacy, so they've not caught up with the AI world yet. So they're landing in a company. So they've spent their time, being, very sort of involved with AI. And then they landed a company that's still a bit legacy, hasn't quite sorted itself out in terms of its AI capability yet, and still doing things the old way. So there's a mismatch, isn't there, in terms of their skill sets? Maybe if they landed in a company that was very AI native and already progressive with that, they'd be okay. But they've sort of landed somewhere that doesn't do it. I used to see this in engineering a little bit, actually. You'd get students coming out of with M-Engines or whatever, and they'd end up in a company that did a lot of sort of what we call traditional engineering, and they'd struggle. And those companies would have to literally say, right, we just need to go and put these students on the shop floor for 6 months and let them learn what the back end of a lathe looks like and actually understand, some real, heavy engineering. Yeah. So I wonder if it's that as well. And then also the other thing that occurred to me when you were talking, Dave, is that I imagine a lot of these applicants are probably making their CVs, a bit better with AI. So again, perhaps overselling themselves, so they on paper, they look fantastic. But the reality is somewhat different.
Well, you know what they say, there's small lies, there's big lies, and there's CVs.
And there's AI.
Yeah. My wife's an actress, and she was saying the amount of people that have got on their, their details that they can ride horses but aren't very good, and quickly before a shoot all the horse riding courses get really booked up because everyone's like, oh crap, I've said I can do this, I can't actually do it.
I can't do it.
But and that's really interesting. I think, and I've often said this, I've said this to you before, Alan, as well, that I worry that the difficult phases of going from a junior in, say, something like law or something that's very knowledge based to an expert takes a lot of time. That can take 10, 15, 20 years. I think when AI can start to do the job of what those juniors do, that's where we get to quite a precarious situation where how do those people go to in engineering or law or architecture, how do they go from that junior position to an expert position when for those companies it's going to be much cheaper for them to have AI doing those junior roles? And I know we're not there with some of those, but we're not far off being there. And I think we'll find 10, 15 years time down the line that there won't be those people with that depth and that knowledge base, but also that world experience of using subtlety and being able to cope with pressure and all those things that come from failing over and over again as a junior. That's my worry with AI.
Yeah, 100%. You want to have experienced judges, they need to have done a bit of law, right?
Judge.
And get it wrong in smaller cases, things that don't matter as much as the bigger cases, and there's hundreds and hundreds of situations where you need to go through that process to get better, to get good, to get gifted at something, and that I worry that we're going to, as companies going to want to save money through using AI instead of juniors or administrators, that will lose something along the way.
And it is happening.
It
is happening on the ground
quicker than we thought as well.
Quicker than we thought. I had, so in 2023, I think the 5th guest or 6th guest on my podcast, she runs a PR company. She came on and she said at the time, she's like, there's no way AI can do what we do. This is a very personal driven, it has to be human. You have to have the connection. You have, what we do is a very particular human skill type thing. That was 2023. I had her in the studio a few weeks ago. We were talking about stuff and it's like, oh, how's business going? How's everything going? She's like, oh, we just let 14 people go because basically we couldn't keep them on because it was too much trouble to try and train them when all of our people could just use AI and get the same work in less time.
Yeah.
14 people got basically let go because they weren't as efficient as AI, and it took more time to train them than it did for the more senior people to use the AI to just get the work done.
Yeah.
And I just looked at her and she went, don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. And I'm like, I mean, this is what's happening. And again, this is
across the country, across the world.
And this is in thousands and thousands and thousands of small to medium-sized companies, which is where it's hitting the hardest.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're the ones that are pushed the most on, sort of cash flow. and everything else. Like you get a McKinsey or someone like that, like they've got billions coming in, they've got massive government contracts, they can kind of afford to keep the juniors on if they want to, and they're still making money and their shareholders are happy. You get an SME, that has, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 people, and they're still pressing to kind of, make their salary every month and whatever, and they really have to watch cash flow quite hard. Then you get in a situation where, well, actually those salaries matter. And if they don't have to have those people, they're not going to have them because it makes it that little bit easier, to keep the company going. And those are the vast majority of jobs.
Yeah.
Are at that level.
Yeah.
And that's where we're really starting to see a problem. And I think that's where we're really going to see a problem moving forward more and more. And exactly like you said, if we're not hiring them now, what we're doing is creating a real problem for ourselves 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Because 10 years from now, we're not going to have the senior people that we would have trained normally. But AI will probably be able to do the senior role.
Well, since we're talking about replacing people then, why don't we move to an even happier note of, did you see the X1 robot all over social media in the last week?
I saw something about it, yeah.
I mean, everyone must have seen...
It's probably worth explaining for the listener. So this was a robot that it's hard to explain really. It was about 5'6", I think. Probably weighs about 100 pounds. It's robotic, obviously. It's covered in a kind of jumper, effectively. It's just always like a kind of woolly sort of outfit. Sort of strange looking face, just a couple of cameras for eyes, no mouth. It's got, ears are microphones, and it weirdly has a speaker in its groin and in its belly.
Put your head down to listen to it.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. And they kind of sold it with their corporate video that this thing can kind of wander about your house, do the washing, fold your laundry, take out the rubbish, bring your shopping in, whatever, sort of mundane house chores basically. And they had this kind of quite sort of slick video and sort of showed this robot kind of doing stuff like this. And then, of course, as the week went on, the journalists like Joanna Stern and Marcus Brownlee sort of dug into this a bit more. In fact, Joanna Stern went and saw the robot and spent maybe a day with it, and sort of quickly worked out, in fact, the robot wasn't really doing any of this. It was more like an animatronics, from Disney or something, and effectively there's a guy with a headset, a Meta headset, it looked like, controlling this thing remotely from another room, So here we are. So, obviously their intention is one day it will be able to do all this stuff autonomously. But what was clear was that even with a human controlling it, it could barely do any of this stuff. It tried to open the door and pulled it in. This is with a human controlling it, pulled it into itself, couldn't. When it sort of went down to try and get stuff at the dishwasher, it practically fell over and then was just fumbling away, So I don't think we're in fear of this thing replacing any of us anytime soon. But just in general, what do you think about the whole idea of having a robot wandering about your house doing this, being able to see you, and all of that and everything that sort of comes with it?
I think we're still decades away from that happening. I know a guy who runs a robotics company, and basically his thing is it's going to be 20 years, 25 years at least before we're in any position for that to happen, because simply that they're too unreliable.
It's expensive, isn't it?
Well, it's expensive, but they're so unreliable and the parts are so fidgety and fragile that as soon as the smallest thing happens, then it breaks and then the whole thing doesn't work and it's expensive to fix. I know I saw a video about BMW, like BMW has some robots in their factories, and I think it said one of them's been working a 10-hour shift every day for 5 months in a row and it hasn't had any problems. And it actually shows it like moving around and it grabs something and it takes it over. So it's doing what a human would do in a very, like a 1-2 square meter area.
Yeah.
But that's it. It only operates in that one space, but it is actually doing it. And it has been working in a factory environment reliably for that long. But that's doing one repetitive task over and over and over again. That's not kind of walking around. So for me, I'm much more concerned about, quantum, because I think we'll actually get quantum computers that are functioning and useful before we'll actually get robots that are walking around our house.
Well, and I think part of the problem with the robot as well, I mean, this one in particular, was that it wasn't waterproof either. So sort of half the tasks you might want it to do, like the dishes, for example, would involve water. Or it couldn't go outside, particularly in case it was raining. And then imagine if you had it cleaning the toilet, and it's going to have the same pair of woolly hands. It's then going to go in, pick up your food, your cutlery.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't allowed to pick up sharp objects, so that rules out any cutlery being put back and put away.
Yeah.
It wasn't allowed to lift any heavy objects. It wasn't allowed to go near anything hot in case it catches fire or decides to throw it at you.
Exactly.
The battery blows up.
It's kind of, and then, the idea that you have a company that, if it wasn't, worse at the moment, there's an actual human in your house looking at you, presumably.
Yeah.
But at some point, a company, at least anyway, scanning your house and having a look around. I mean, it just feels like, I think, and I agree with you, Dave, 100%. For everything I've heard about robotics, is that this is still a very long way out. And just something that might seem simple to us, like unloading a dishwasher, is incredibly complicated for an AI system and a robot to be able to do that. And incredibly complicated.
But like the robot dog is a different thing.
I've just seen one of those live actually a few weeks ago. They're really cool.
And they are cool, and they're creepy as well.
They're freaky and cool.
Yeah, but they're using the army's already using them in combat and stuff to carry heavy loads. Yeah. And because it self-balances and whatever, you can load it up with ammo for your unit or whatever and send it out. And so it can take a lot of stuff with it as basically like a pack mule. And so I can see where something like that they've kind of got out in the field and they're using it, that can be useful. But again, that's not like a humanoid robot. Yeah. That's more use, like it's like a horse, right? So you're kind of making a horse just to carry heavy loads, and that makes sense. And
or bomb disposal, or all those
exactly.
Cases,
But I think it's so far away realistically that it's. It's fun to think about, I guess.
I think most of us have got some aging relatives. What about a companion robot? So it doesn't need to do much. Doesn't need to go and do the dishes. It's not a slave. And I am actually slightly concerned that the human's first response when we think we've got some kind of robot is to turn it into a slave for us. Maybe says something about humanity. But putting that aside, it's just a companion. So it can sit on the sofa with you. It can chat to you. It looks a bit human. It looks friendly. It's got Chat GPT inside of it, so it can have a decent conversation. It can sit there and talk about whatever. If it was the case of my mother, talk about the war endlessly, and just kind of be a social being that's always.
I just had a terrible thought.
You need to share it.
And it's not what you think. No, or the. I shouldn't even say this. It's like, is that what we're going to end up to do the euthanization with? Is we're going to have the robots do it? So then it's no one's fault.
Well, the pods are machines, aren't they? They're sort of they're robots in a way, a crew, single purpose robot. But no, it's just you
could have a few of these wandering around care homes maybe, and just going in and talking to people who are sort of
taking people out.
And, have a chat.
They're just going to malfunction one day and just take everyone out.
I mean, I guess this X1 suffers slightly from the same thing that the Elon Musk robot show had. It felt so like it was all controlled by humans, and none of it was actually. And I think it's that over promising. Everyone's so desperate to do stuff and to get it out there that they're we're always over. We had the same problem with ChatGPT 5 when that was these things are amazing steps, but we're marketing them as beyond what they can do, and I think that's one of the big problems. I mean, even when we did the car one, there was a lot of the cars were driven by remote operators to start with. And less so now because they've solved some of that, and I guess they will solve that with this robot, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be ready for when they launch. And
the thing is, the car thing is a much easier problem to solve, that because it's operating within a much more defined framework normally. I mean, the self-driving cars we have at the moment only work in very specific environments anyway, and they're heavily loaded with radar, lidar, and all sorts of stuff. Like the Waymos and things, and then the sort of Elon Musk self-driving, only work in very particular environments like motorways and things like that. If you jump on a Cornish road and try and let a Tesla drive you to St Ives, I think you're going to have a lot of problems. But with the house, there is so much complexity. I mean, even just take something like folding clothes, every clothing item, the different shape and how does it fold and how should you fold it and what should it look, the level of complexity is off the scale basically. And I think it's going to take an awful lot of uplift in intelligence and also robotics to get us close to that.
The single-use robots seem to be really good. The Hoover on the floor going around, and it's got its problems. It can't go over a lip of more than an inch, and it can't. But we have one. It's great.
It's a toaster, isn't it? It does one thing, and that's what it does. And it can do it.
Pool cleaners, or those sort of single. Can you imagine getting a robot to clean your pool, Jim? it's just.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm sure they do now.
Yeah. But it's. I agree. I think it's unnerving a little bit. I can't really put my finger on why. I think probably because it was so crap. So why are you going to even show off the dishwasher scene? It was so awful.
Well, there's the guys down in
multi-millionaire, right? I would get one just for the giggle.
I think what'll end up happening is that eventually, if we look far into the future, I think we'll go through a phase where, like you said, if you have tons of money, you'll buy a robot because they're fun. And then what will eventually happen is that only the rich people will use humans and everybody else will be stuck using robots because robots will be the cheapest, most cost-effective, most reliable way to deliver any type of service or anything. So if you don't have any money, you're going to end up dealing with robots and AI all the time. And if you have loads of money, then you'll get to deal with humans.
Yeah. Human is a luxury. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a chef and someone's
exactly.
A nanny.
Otherwise, you're getting food from a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the rest.
And on that positive note,
Uber Eats. An Uber Eats robot. So it's just walked up on a bike. There we are. Well, I think we've probably come to the end, guys. We're on the time, I think. So we're just over the hour. So
literally, we've talked ourselves into the end, haven't we? The end
of civilization as we know it.
I know. So make lots of money so you can keep dealing with humans. That's the message.
I think Alan, really interesting topic for another sort of slightly deeper conversation is around sort of robots and AI for companionship.
Yeah,
that's a really interesting thing to look into. I haven't looked into that at all, and obviously there's the darker underbelly of that. But there's the sort of more old people, losing memory, all those kind of children at night being read a story to. I mean, there's some creepy stuff around it, but it'd be interesting to explore that at some point.
Well, I've got a cunning plan actually, just very quickly, and maybe this is something we can explore. In a future podcast, because I might have done it by then, but I'm going to set my mum up with Chat GPT. So she, if she's bored, she's sitting on her own, she can chat to it. And I'm basically going to put in the personalization that every time she fires it up, that it will ask her about, her life and what she's done and things that she's, so she'll sit there and tell it all about the war and her childhood and everything else. And I figure if I leave her doing this for a year or something, it will capture so much information about her life and what she did. At the end of it, that will be an unbelievable resource for me, in years to come, to go back to and talk to and ask about. And it's a kind of lazy way of instead of sitting there with a load of tape recorders and transcribing and recording it for hours and hours and hours, I just get the AI to basically.
Well, it could do video as well.
You didn't even have to be there, Alan.
Exactly.
Exactly.
No, I think it could be good. I mean, and potentially,
it would be interesting.
The extreme you could go to then, of course, I could then take over that AI and at some point, and then actually turn it into a kind of Denise chatbot. I could then say what you are now this person. And,
you could. That's we talked about that at one point, didn't we?
We did on the grief tech thing.
On the grief tech, I think I would like to throw out a potential topic that I think we could dig into in one show as well, which is I'm really focused a lot on quantum right now, and I think everybody's talked about how AI is in a massive bubble, a financial bubble at the minute, which I totally agree. And I think that quantum is going to be the next bubble. Mm-hmm. And so I think as soon as we get because we now have some quantum systems that are working pretty well. And I think we're going to start to see that more and more. And I think as soon as anybody really cuts on to what's going on there, I think all the money is going to move from AI and it's all going to pile into quantum. And then, but the impact that quantum might have on AI, I think is also something that we should really think about, because all of the processing and all of the struggles that we have around the processing at the minute, if you put that onto quantum, all of that goes away. And then that opens it up to doing, thousands and thousands and thousands times, maybe million times more processes in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's going to completely change the playing field.
Well,
and then we can talk about fusion, which is coming even after that. And that's the next bubble.
So you've got the kind of, the triangle of transformative technologies, haven't you? Quantum fusion and AI. What when you put that together, what kind of force multiplier are you getting? Let's make that the next episode.
You end up with the rabbit.
You end up with the R1.
The rabbit.
Spoiler alert. I'm going to get my son for Christmas, but don't tell me. We can talk about that another time. Why on earth would I?
Are those your meta glasses as well? Are those the new ones?
Yeah, well, they're not the new ones. They are the originals, but
they are the originals, right?
So they don't start giving me messages in the middle of the conversation. Very
distracting. That's probably a good idea. All right, are we done?
Thanks, guys. It's been amazing to catch up. Let's get another pod recorded soon. But yeah, until then, see you soon.
Let's do it. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Nice
Bye-bye.
to see you. Bye.